Hi guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with patch 2.4 A tier list on support. Now this is the last of the 5 that I'm doing for patch 2.4 A. We're kind of doing a little bit of a reset. We're covering every single role, every single viable champion in each of those 5 roles in detail, discussing every single champion. And of course this is for solo queue, like I mentioned in my other videos, not for duo queue, trio queue, or 5-man, or even doesn't even take pro play really into account. So of course, if you guys like the series as well as my videos, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and also to check out the other patch 2.4 A tier list for the other roles, which I will link in the cards above. Alright, so without further ado, let's jump quickly into the support tier list. So now, with the patch 2.4 new items, being like Solari, Charge Blade, Essence Reaver, and so on, the AD carry role is pretty much the strongest it has ever been, so it is somewhat an AD carry meta. Now, being somewhat of an AD carry meta, the supports meta have changed quite dramatically. Now, Enchanter supports are way more dominant, and we're back into the Enchanter meta. And we haven't really been in Enchanter meta ever since, I believe, it was around like patch 1 point something, like the early days of League of Legends, where there was a Blitzcrank and Enchanter meta. So, of course, for more of that, you can check out the meta recap, which I will put in the cards above. Now, so let's quickly jump into the actual tier list. So first up, we have Janna. Now, Janna has pretty much everything you want. You have the interrupt potential on your Tornado, and a good Janna can interrupt a lot of things. Can interrupt a Lee Sin, and Akali, and Alistar, and Gage. Can interrupt a lot of things. She has poke on her W, healing and shielding, or rather technically shielding, but she's gonna be building something like an Harmonic Echo on her E, which is the part where you can use to protect your AD carry, and also her ultimate, which gives a lot of shield, as well as being a knockback for people who wants to engage on you or your team. So Janna pretty much has it all. So Janna is pretty much the best AD carry. Now closely behind her is actually Lulu and Nami. Now Lulu, I think, has the slight edge over Nami. As I said, being an AD carry meta, Lulu is probably the best support at buffing a single AD carry. She can give the attack and movement speed with her W, the shield as well as picks with her E, and a knockup as well as health with her ultimate. And other than that, she of course can disable enemies with her polymorph, and also use her E onto enemies to poke in the early game. So pretty much Lulu is the best support to support the actual AD carry. And closely behind is Nami. So Nami has her W for healing and her E to buff her allies' attacks. Other than that, she has bubbles for a lot of catch potential. Now, if you see in a lot of my videos, my duo partner, Zenri, always uses Nami, like pretty much in like 95% of matches. Pretty much a Nami one-trick. And you can see how many kills are set up just by a nice Nami bubble. Now, granted, when you first start picking up Nami, the bubble is not that easy to land, but with practice, you can actually land bubble relatively consistently. And bubble is a huge CC. So she also has her wave to kind of engage or disengage. Majority of the time it's for disengage. Of course, it's not as instant as the Janna ultimate. However, it is still pretty good. And Nami also has a lot of lane presence with her W harass. Now, Nami oftentimes will start W and start harassing enemies from level 1. Much like how Janna harasses enemies with her W on level 1, Nami can do the same. Except Nami's harass bounces back and heals herself for an even better trade. So Nami is just pretty much the best. So now we have the golden triangle of Enchanter supports being Janna, Lulu, and Nami. But at the tippy top, we also have Senna. Now Senna's support isn't really an Enchanter, and she cannot really buff her allies all that well. But this is solo queue, and what she can do is carry herself and her team in the later stages of the game. So now honestly, if this wasn't for solo queue, Senna probably would only be in the S tier, but since this is solo queue, she has to be in the A tier. Sorry, in the S plus tier. What am I talking about? In the S plus tier, because of the fact that she can pretty much hard carry the game at later stages of the game. It's pretty much the only reason why she's in the S plus tier. Obviously, you don't take the farm. Obviously, we just farm your souls. Let time move on. Stack up your Gathering Storm, and you're gonna be a late game beast. Now, Thresh is our latest addition to the game, and Thresh, honestly, he's pretty good. He can do pretty much everything except heal his allies. He can pretty much set up with his hook and his flay to pull enemies in, or he can disengage with his flay as well. Like when Lee Sin and Akali are flying in, he can flay them away to avoid the damage. He can use his lantern to save overextended allies, or he can engage himself and use his lantern to pull allies in. The box can be a defensive tool, an offensive tool. He can do pretty much anything other than like heal his allies. So he really is a playmaking kind of support. But as I said, it's all about the AD carry now. So Enchanter supports generally will be better than tank and engage supports. And yeah, Thresh also doesn't really have a very good matchup into the Enchanters unless they make a mistake, or into Senna either because of her range. Now, of course, we also have more tank supports like Braum and Leona. Now, Braum, of course, does have a place in the meta, especially if there are a lot of projectiles that can be blocked. And his concussive blows can actually set up a lot of kills if you manage to stack it all the way up for the stun. So Braum definitely pretty good. And Leona probably the best engaged kind of support, other than maybe Thresh. Thresh and Leona are pretty close. But Leona with her, she has a lot of tankiness, a lot of CC with her Zenith Blade, her point and click single target stun, and her Solar Flare. She has a lot of lockdown. Rakan, a really good engaged support as well. He doesn't have that much CC, but he can set up kills really easily because of the very quick cast time of his W, as well as having the ultimate to combo into as well. So Rakan also can set up a lot, and his stock has been rising over the past couple of patches, so I do believe he is the S tier. Now we move on to the A tier, where we have two more enchanters, which are Lux and Seraphine. So Lux and Seraphine, they don't do as well as the Golden Trio just because they don't really support as much. Lux has only supportive capability is her W, her shield, which is like a free locket, but she brings to the table some pick potential with her snare, as well as some snipe potential with her ultimate, but she doesn't really buff her AD carry as much. So she's sort of like a middle ground between a like engaged support and a enchanter support. Of course, she doesn't actually engage, but she snares, which engages the fight. Seraphine is somewhat the same. She does have supportive capabilities with her W, but she also has pick potential with her R and her E as well. So she's sort of like on the same boat as Lux. Now, Alistar is just simply not as good as the other tank engage supports. Now, he is more tanky than them, but he has a very one-dimensional engage that can be very telegraphed, although he is not to be underestimated, which is why he's still in the A tier, so he's still relatively good. Same story with Galio. Galio is really tanky, especially into magic damage comps, but he also has decent damage and a lot of CC. Now, our latest addition to the A tier, at the very bottom of the A tier, though, is Soraka. Now, Soraka with her recent buffs doesn't have to consume as much health in order to heal her ally, which actually makes her sustain in lane her sustain in lane insane, because her ally can just take a lot of poke and she can just heal them all the way back up without actually expending too much of her own health. Now, of course, this is not very good into something like a engage lane like a Thresh or a Leona or a Rakan, because by the time they burst you down, you can't really heal as fast. But it is really good against something like a Enchanter lane, which is a lot more common now, which is like if you're getting poked out by like Janna and all, you can't heal your ally back up. So she does have her place in the meta, but she's very matchup dependent, so she can't really be too high. And as well as the fact that this is solo queue, so Soraka pretty much is a heal bot. She's just gonna be healing her ally the entire time, and you have no real potential to carry the game. Of course, you're only really there to heal your allies. Of course, healing the correct ally is important. Now, Sona, honestly, is kind of like a slightly worse version of Soraka in the early stages of the game, but a better version of Soraka in the later stages of the game, because if you can get to a late game kind of Sona, you can just buff up your whole team non-stop. But the issue is that relying on late game isn't really the best idea, because some games are decided in the early stages of the game, and some games don't even go that long. So Sona is just really not very good as a support now. Aside from the fact that she can't really protect an AD carry like how Lulu, Nami, and Janna can, she kind of needs to rely on her late game scaling and to make a big impact in team fights. Now, Blitzcrank, pretty bad. He is a one-note champion as well with just his hook. That's his only real strength. So of course, if you are a skilled Blitzcrank and hit your hooks consistently, you can make it work, of course, but majority of people cannot. And even if you can, honestly, a lot of champions can bring so much more to the table. Why not just play Thresh, who can, do so much more than Blitzcrank if you're good at hooking other champions. Pantheon, you guys know how I feel about him. I've talked about him in 3 previous tier lists in mid, jungle, and top. I don't really like the champion. I don't feel that he is too strong. I don't think he brings too much value to the table. And in support, even more so, because he doesn't really have much access to gold. So, Malphite and Annie, both level 5 supports, they do way better in their respective roles with farm. I don't think they do very well in the support role. So if that comes to the end of our support tier list, and also to the end of all our tier lists for patch 2.4a. So of course we will be updating the tier list when need be. Might be in patch 2.4b, might be in patch 2.4c, depending on when the meta has very significant shifts and I feel that we need to make another tier list. But aside from that, thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.